Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. We annually spend on military security alone more than the net income of all United States corporations. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend, the end of our elaborate plans, the end of everything that stands, the end, no safety or surprise, the end, I'll never look into your eyes again.
All right. That, of course, was President Eisenhower's farewell address, just a pastiche of it. The whole thing's great. I can never get enough of it. We play it all the time here, and some people say, well, that's getting overplayed. No, it's not, because it's very relevant. You're right, Reggie. It's very relevant. And then the end, why is the end in there? That's the music in Apocalypse Now. And the name of the show today, I think, is provisionally called Countdown to World War III, which will be the end. I'm Randy Credico. This is Live on the Fly. We have two very special guests who've been here before, and you know, you speak of Eisenhower Media Network, all right, which I think that speech inspired the name of that organization, the Eisenhower Media Network. And, of course, we're talking about Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson and Special Master Sergeant the Chief, Dennis Fritz. So they're going to join us in 1 minute. We're off to war, folks, and here's a song that they may be playing real soon.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the run, on the run, on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every son of liberty. Hurry right away, no delay, go today. Make your daddy glad to have had such a lad. Tell your sweetheart not to pine, to be proud her boy's in line. Over there, send the word over there.
That was Billy Murray, George M. Cohen's Over There, 1917. That was the first recording, and we got it right here. And we are now joined by Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson and Chief Master Sergeant Mr., my friend, both of them are my friends, Dennis Fritz. Did I get that right, gentlemen?
Well, yes, I guess I'll go first. This is Dennis Fritz, and can you hear me okay?
Yes, but I can't hear the Colonel.
He's there. Come on. He's there.
The Colonel we cannot hear.
Okay.
We sometimes we have problems with our equipment here.
Yeah.
He should be there.
Are you there?
He's there. He's there.
And we can't hear him again.
All right,
What should he do? You want to get him by phone? Let's get him by phone. We'll talk to you for a minute. We're going to ask the first question anyway. Dennis, what about that?
Oh.
Are we going over there?
How about now?
Oh, you're perfect. My God. You sound like Cicero.
Well, Marcus Tullius was my good buddy.
Oh, tempura, oh, mores. You got me into that, all right? I've been doing, research. We're not going to talk about it today. Maybe
By the way,
will.
that shouldn't be every son of liberty. Today it should be every son of empire.
Right. Well, of course. Wasn't it then, back in 1917?
Not really. We have only been an empire, really, since 1945.
Right. Right. Yes. All right. Wow. Well, I won't play that song again. We'll change it. Somehow we'll do AI and change that song. All right?
Oh, the song's fine.
Yeah. Billy Murray. Are you, Chief, familiar with that piece of music?
No, I'm not.
Right.
No.
Well, I was going to play something different because they're both from the same, from North and South Carolina. I was going to play Nothing Could Be Finer Than to Be in Carolina in the Morning, but I didn't. All right. And you're in Carolina right now, South Carolina, Chief, right?
Well, I'm on a road trip. I've left South Carolina. Now I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. Well, what I want you to do first is, because in case we don't have any time, this is going to go by real quickly, any time at the end, is give us an overview of the mission statement of the Eisenhower Media Network and how you two gentlemen met.
Well, if you want to know how we met, let's start with that first, because I owe my, my adventure into being an outspoken critic of our foreign policy and having a platform, thanks to Colonel Larry Wilkerson. I took the bold chance of reaching out to him. Wow, it's been so long ago now, in the early 2000s. He was one of the first Bush administration members to come out against the Iraq war, realizing that, the United States had made a big mistake, realized that Colin Powell had been bamboozled and given bad intel to his presentation to the United Nations. And I reached out to Larry because at the time I was working for the Department of Defense's Wounded Warrior Program. And not the Wounded Warrior Project, a nonprofit organization, but the actual official sanctioned Wounded Warrior Program as part of the Department of Defense. And I was then at the Walter Reed. And when I saw that Larry had come out forcefully against the Iraq war, I decided to reach out to him. And I had 2 emails for him that I researched. And he responded back to me. And what I did, I wanted him, as I did with other members of Congress, I wanted him to see the results of that war, the human results, what it had done to our military members and their families. And so I invited Larry out to Walter Reed, and he graciously accepted. And when I met him at Walter Reed, I must tell you and be candid with you, and it was by intention. I would always, when members of Congress would come over, I would introduce them to the most wounded members of our military because I wanted to impact them. And so Larry was not immune to that. So likewise, I did it to him, even though he had came out, in support of our military men and women for the sacrifice they'd made in this ill-advised war. And we met from there. It really touched Larry. And at the time, I told Larry, hey, you have a platform. And now you got to go out there and use that platform for what you've seen here at Walter Reed, the results of a war that was based on a lie. And that's what made me write my book, Deadly Betrayal.
Yes.
Deadly Betrayal, the truth about why the United States invaded Iraq. It was a deadly betrayal because it was based on a lie, and 4,500 military men and women died based on that lie. And then Larry saw the results of those who survived, many of them wishing they had died in that war. And Larry took that, and he went far beyond what I expected in being an outspoken critic of our foreign policy. And I am so happy, and I'm so glad to call him a friend, one of my best friends that I've ever had in my life.
Right. You're the former director of the Eisenhower Media Network, and Larry, you are
Yes.
a fellow. Can you tell me? You recently had a meeting with another member. I think it was Dennis Feich. Is that his name? With a member of Congress. What was the nature of that conversation?
Are you talking to me now?
Yes.
Well, we had a meeting with a senator, Democratic senator. That's all I'll say. If I go further, you'll identify the person. And we took Margaret Wilmoth, Major General from the United States Army Reserve's Medical Corps. Most people don't know that most of the real substantial medical care for our soldiers and sailors, Marines, airmen, and others, but in this case the Army, is in the reserve components, not in the active components. And it's sorely hurting. It's about 30-40% short right now in terms of doctors. And and practical nurses, it's really short, maybe 85% short. So we went over to visit this senator to tell her about how broken the all-volunteer force is, how we don't have enough soldiers, Marines, even Marines, though they recruit to standards, they're the only service that does, they're very small. The Air Force, the Navy, the Space Force, and others, we're really hurting because we cannot field sufficient numbers with this all-volunteer force. And she essentially responded to us by telling us she'd just been on a Pacific tour and been to the Philippines, been to Korea, been to Taiwan, been to Japan, and everything, and she saw that China was encircled, our number one enemy, and so how could we possibly say that the U.S. military was in any way short? And we said, who took you on that tour? She said, well, the Pentagon, of course. We said, right. Well, just sit there for a moment. Let us disabuse you of the smoke that's been blown up your derriere. She then promised us a further hearing. This was about almost a year ago now. A further hearing to go into it in greater detail, and we have not heard a word from her since.
All right. It's amazing. Not only are we not prepared, I'm looking at this military budget. It's like $1.1 trillion, right? Something like that. And why is it you got the F-35's problems? There's problems with a lot of our equipment. Why is it, Chief, that the Russians can spend $100 billion and get better material than we can?
Well, I can say it quite frankly. We're a capitalist society about making money. You know, when you mentioned the F-35, when I first retired from the Air Force, you know, like a lot of us in the military, I'm guilty. I went and worked for a contractor. And believe it or not, I was the program security manager for the F-35 program. And I think it had probably the most cost overruns ever in history. And I must tell you that these contractors are making a lot of money. So that's why we're so against, as part of the Eisenhower Media Network, as you mentioned about our mission. We got the name from of course, the President and General Dwight D. Eisenhower. And beware of the military-industrial complex. And we're a capitalist society, and we're about making money.
Right.
And so that is why that you see the cost of our weapon systems being so expensive and so costly.
Right. And China, Colonel, as well, spends, maybe 10, 12, 15% on their defense budget. What is it about? Is it just corruption or is it the right stuff? Is there a strategy with the stuff that's purchased? I mean, how are these decisions made, Colonel?
Well, the decisions aren't really made in any logical, strategic way anymore. Back when I was a major and working in the system, the acquisition system, specifically working in it, we actually had something called the planning and programming system, the budget system, as it were. And what we did was we put down our requirements. We put them in an official document. If it was a joint requirement, we put them in what we call the JMINs, a Joint Mission Element Needs Statement. We then went to Congress, as I did, for example, as a major with the high mobility multi-purpose wheel vehicle, which later became the Hummer. And we briefed it to the Congress, and the Congress briefed us back in terms of this is what you need to do to the program to get us to approve it, et cetera, et cetera. And then we went back and worked the JMINs and presented it back to the Congress, and that was a $9 billion, 52,000 vehicle buy program. And we got a reasonably good result from it when the tech data package went over to AM General, and they produced the vehicles. Well, fast forward to the present time, and I'll take you right through my time with Powell when he was chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and we reduced the armed forces of the United States by 25%, and then another 3% for a total of 28% when Bill Clinton came in and his Secretary of Defense, Les Aspin, wanted to implement his plan, which was another 3% cut. Well, in addition to that 28% cut in the armed forces, we did a similar cut, really deeper cut, maybe even 40 to 45%, in the roughly 100 defense contractors who did $1 billion or more worth of business annually with the Defense Department. We cut them down to about 8. Now they're down to 5, with Lockheed Martin having incorporated the other 3. And before that, incorporated about 16 or 17 of the others that went out of business. So what we charge is a maximum price and delivers months or even years after they're due, so they're obsolete when they are delivered. Wow. That's where we are now.
Wow. Chief, the weapons that we have given the warplanes, I guess F-35s, are they to Israel? Seems to be working efficiently in that genocide project over there.
Well, au contraire, but I'll let Dennis answer that.
Well, it was a rhetorical question. All right.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Being rhetorical because of the fact, we found out that, as I stated earlier, with all the cost overruns with the F-35, it's not performing, as many thought it would. But part of the problem is, being a part of it originally, that plane. They tried to design it for so many uses. It was going through problem. When you talk about cost overruns, and part of the problem, it was being made for our allies. It was being made for the different services, and all have different missions and needs. And we took this one plane, and there were just so many design changes to accommodate, whether it be the Navy, whether it be our allied countries, whether it be where we're going to provide some of our allied countries, all the systems that it was capable of doing. Israel had different needs and so forth. So it's not performing as well as many had thought it would, and and the rest is history. And we'll continue to see. In fact, you ready for this? There's already talk about getting rid of it.
Right.
So I'll leave it at that.
Wasn't the stealth bomber, didn't it have problems? It couldn't fly in clouds or something like that? Years ago when it first came out, it was like this spruce goose, but it's operating now.
Yeah, I can't remember
that.
What
do you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a stealthy budget. I don't know.
Let me tell you what I have heard from pilots and the few pilots that will talk, because one of the things you have with, and Dennis can attest to this better than I, but one of the things you have, and I was a pilot too in the Army, is that you get in love with the equipment and you won't tell the truth. But I've found some guys who have told me the truth, I think. One of the things the F-35 in all of its versions was supposed to do was take this incredible technology that Lockheed had come up with, which is now obsolete, but that's another point, and sink the entire battlefield, everything. So this F-35 would fly around and it would coordinate artillery strikes, cruise missile strikes, submarine strikes, you name it. It would coordinate because it was so massively technologically sophisticated in its cockpit, the whole battlefield, everything. Wow. Well, the Israelis flew that baby up to the Iranian border in their first attack on Iran and found out that, wow, our system's not working. They're jamming it. They're fizzing it. In other words, confusing it. We're not going any further. We'll launch all our weapons right now from the border into Iran and hope they hit their targets. That's the real failure of this airframe, is it was designed to coordinate all manner of aspects of the battlefield, and it has failed abysmally in doing that.
Yes.
Not to mention the fact that its operationally ready rate is extremely low, that its maintenance time to flight hour is 35 to 1, and that Lockheed maintained proprietary responsibility for much of the maintenance, which means that your people can't work on it in the Air Force, Marine Corps, Navy. Only Lockheed can work on it in certain areas, and they charge you $500 a minute to do that.
Wow.
And there goes the money that you were talking about, Randy, right there. Being a capitalist society, all about making money, and Lockheed Martin from day one. And, when you have these cost overruns, remind you, they're coming in and saying, hey, we need more money. And when Larry mentioned something about, when the Air Force, in particular, I'm just going to talk about the Air Force, You know, when they come out with these weapon systems, you're competing for dollars with the other services within the DOD. And you don't want to admit failure. And what do? You continue to, unfortunately, invest money. And that's why we get into this doggone debt that we're in right now. Primarily, you know, guess what? They always want to talk about social programs, but it's our DOD. And you don't know all the money, and I hate to mention this, but I'll cautiously mention this, all the money within DOD, and when you talk about these weapon systems and programs, the black world, which we don't know how much money is being spent in the black world. And that's the secret stuff, if you will, to talk in plain language.
Yeah. Well, you identified a lot of this corruption, this circle of money going around in your book, Deadly Betrayal, which you can get at Or Books, folks. There are other outlets, but I prefer Or Books, and I stay away from the big companies like Dell. I saw... I don't know if you saw this, Colonel. Dell is responsible for they got a big contract for the AI assassinations in Gaza. Are you aware of that? Is this about making money even in Gaza?
Of course it is. The biggest makers of money in Gaza with really questionable technology in terms of the way the Israelis are using it are Palantir and Anduril.
Right.
The leading edge, if you will, of Pete Hegseth's attempt to transfer from legacy contractors like Lockheed and RTX and Grumman and Boeing over to more Silicon Valley type people who, as Hegseth has said, can put the technology on the battlefield before it's obsolete and can put the right technology on the battlefield. Well, I'm seeing some of that in Israel, and I got to tell you, it's miserably unsuccessful in my view.
All right. Well,
it's killing a lot of people.
A lot of people, and I want to get to that. I want to talk about the civil. Yes, go ahead. You can always add.
Let me just mention this: when you were talking about money in Gaza, what the latest you have to look at is this so-called food relief that we've contracted out. That is a money-making machine. I think talk about this new guy we have out there, a former Army soldier. I think it's Anthony Aguilar.
Aguilar, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you talk with him, the amount of money, and it's a money-making project.
Right. That's a company out of D.C.
And a humanitarian disaster because they're using the sites where they're putting out this food and water through this private organization, which incidentally is funded by Israel.
Right.
They're using those sites to kill people to the tune of 50 to 150 a day.
That's just unbelievable. I want to talk about the children because I was thinking today, I was watching a couple of YouTube programs, one that you were on, Colonel, and there was an ad. I see it a lot, and it's about that horrific, heinous crime in Sandy Hook where 20 children were killed. All right, it was a horrible event. So I'm looking at that, 20 people, and the nation is really angry with it. And I'm looking at Gaza. There's been, I would say, I've heard up to 30,000 children that have been killed there. So that would be 1,500 Sandy Hooks.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what the real count in Gaza is. According to the Army's own matrix for assessing battlefield damage assessment using the most sophisticated methods known to man. And that includes knowing everything from the concrete to the rebar to the specific buildings to the texture of the streets to the ordnance dropped to the density of the people and the buildings upon whom that ordnance is dropped. It includes hundreds of parameters like that. And in our own conflicts, like particularly in Al-Anbar province in Iraq and in Afghanistan and some of the more deadly areas around Kandahar and elsewhere, we found there's a pretty good correlation with the assessment made by this tool and the actual number of people who were killed or wounded. If you put that tool on Gaza right now, which the Army has done, and you assess the damage, it also includes ordnance used. Is it artillery? Is it 500-pound bombs, 250s, 750s, 2,000, whatever? If you put that on Gaza right now, you have 200,000 dead people.
Wow.
And half of those are children and women and people over 60.
It's just amazing.
That's what Israel has done.
Wow.
And what I would add to that, Randy,
Please do.
no, it's just simple. Now we know why the IDF will not allow the free press into Gaza.
Yep.
Right. Well, how can they stop it? I mean, really, the free press, whatever that is, the mainstream
They shoot
media,
them.
huh? They shoot them.
They shoot
How many?
them,
How many
Randy.
journalists have been
You know how
murdered?
many journalists have
200.
died in Israel?
200.
More journalists have died in Israel in the last 2 years than
200.
have died in the last 70 years of war.
Wow.
And not only that,
Wow.
Randy, if when they do shoot them, it will be a false flag. They will say they didn't shoot them, or they will blame it on a mosque, like the starvation they're doing now.
Yeah, that's
They'll
starvation.
blame it on the settlers in the West Bank, who they then will not punish for having done it.
They never get punished. They never get punished. You
But
know?
their so-called rationale, though, is that for the protection of the press. Right.
Right.
Now, you, Colonel, said that the IDF is basically finished. Yesterday, I think it was on Judge Knapp's show, that the IDF is like, it's still operating, but it's on its last leg. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. The reservists are, let's just put it this way, they're mutinying. About 30% of them have roughly not shown up or shown up late or said they weren't going to show up. And you can't hardly blame them. I mean, look, 2 years with the reservists on active duty, that's ruinous to your economy, and it has ruined Israel's economy. And you've got the highest post-traumatic stress rate Israel has ever seen, probably ever will see, if it even remains a state with a military. You've got a suicide rate that's now getting off the chart, equaling and surpassing even some of our own suicide rates, which are really dramatic. And you have generals and colonels, mostly the colonels, but others below them, because the generals have been hand-picked for the most part by Netanyahu. He relieved all the generals who would argue with him and tell him he was, emperor with no clothes. He relieved them and placed them with generals that Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and others like him approved. In other words, they agree with him. They're zealots. They're Zionists. Well, they're out there leading troops who are not that way in some respects. So you've got a real dichotomy now on the battlefield between what the troops are feeling and voting with their feet in some cases, and what the leaders are ordering them to do. And it was particularly exposed around this guy, Tony Aguilar, who talks about what it was like at the Site 2, I think he was at, where the Israelis didn't know that there was someone there in the room with them that spoke Hebrew, and translated what the IDF officer was giving as orders to shoot these kids, for example. And Tony didn't want that to happen. So that's just one little microcosm. But that's part of what's happening now.
Right. Now you're hearing, Chief, that some buzz about U.S. troops being sent over there, under the pretext of protecting, but they would. But can you imagine American troops? Would they fire on civilians to finish the lawn mowing here?
Well, sometimes, Randy, we're asked questions. I don't know. You can give opinions, assumptions, and facts. But let me just give you a fact real quickly. As Larry mentioned a few minutes ago, first of all, Israel relies on their reserve forces quite a bit in these battles. Quite a few of them right now are here either in New York or Miami, okay? Yeah. I don't think they're going back. The other thing I will mention to you, over 10 years of my life was spent working with wounded warriors, as I alluded to earlier. And the primary wounds were mentally, as Larry mentioned, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD as it's known. And I will tell you, when Larry mentioned about this IDF officer directing the killing of these children, well, listen, most people are sane. You have crazy people that just kill and it wouldn't bother them. But in most, I don't care who you are, where you live, where you're from, it's going to bother you. And to add to what Larry said, I worked for over 10 years with our airmen and soldiers that came back with PTSD. And you don't overcome that. And that's going to cause a problem for the IDF. Now, with that said, what you're hearing is that if Israel decides they're going to go in and completely, as Netanyahu wants now, and I guess he got the support now from the government, and control Gaza City and take over the entire Gaza Strip, they don't have the forces to be able to do that. And so there are some now thinking that somehow he's going to convince Trump for the need of American forces, maybe under the disguise of peacekeeping. I don't know. But that's where that is coming from, because to do, even their own IDF experts, former retired officers are saying they don't know how Bibi Netanyahu is going to be able to carry out that plan of taking over Gaza City. And you're talking about displacing, 1 million people again. I don't see how they're going to do it. And there's some feeling that, hey, it's going to take the support of America for them to do that.
Well, I heard somebody yesterday say, Colonel, that they've gone from Gaza has gone from a constant open-air concentration camp to a death camp. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, I would agree with it. Absolutely. And
absolutely.
What you were just talking about there, what I'm hearing, and God forbid that it should happen, is that Trump is excited about the prospect of, if you put U.S. troops there, ultimately being able to build his resort Gaza.
Oh my God! All right. Well, listen. Very few people in Congress are speaking out. We have two clips here. I want to play. And I can't believe I'm going to play this because I was never a fan of hers, but she's actually flipped around and said some of the most brilliant, daring statement the other day on the House floor, and that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's
my
play
good
that.
friend from Georgia.
Yeah. We'll play that for you, right? I can't believe, and this blows me away. It's not a
Me
pun.
too.
Yeah.
Israel bombed a Catholic church in Gaza, and that an entire population is being wiped out as they continue their aggressive war in Gaza. My amendment would strike $500 million in funding for nuclear-armed Israel's missile defense system. The U.S. already provides Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid. $3.8 billion, that's a lot of money. Additionally, the April 2024 security supplemental included $8.7 billion for Israel. Even though Israel, nuclear-armed Israel, has universal health care for their citizens and subsidized college for their citizens. They're able to provide that. However, here in America, we're $37 trillion in debt. My amendment will ensure an America First Department of Defense, and that is exactly what we need and we haven't had for a very long time.
Your friend from Georgia, unlike my friend from Georgia, from New York City, AOC voted against that amendment.
Yep.
Can you believe it?
I'm becoming a fan of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Me too, because... Go ahead, Dennis.
No, I think I was on the Judge one day this week, and I told others doing some interviews, and I'll tell it to you, Randy. I'm on the Marjorie Taylor Greene train, along with Tucker Carlson. And I will tell you, some of my, harsh progressive friends get upset. They don't understand. Listen, if a drunk man is right on something, I'm going to join in. I'm about righteousness, doing what's right. And I'm on that Marjorie Taylor Greene train right now because of the fact Democrats, progressive, she's more outspoken than any of them.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you, now what really got my attention, and I didn't know it was going to be in that piece that you mentioned, but what got my attention earlier on when she said, listen to this now, Randy. She said Israel have social programs, mind you.
Yeah.
Conservatives. They have subsidized education, free health care. Just think we're begging for that over here. To hear her even say that Israel have that and we don't have that, she has been a Republican, that got my attention as well. But I'm on that train with her right now, and I'll do everything I can to support her in the cause that she's on now.
Larry, you want to add to that?
No, I think she's like Tom Massey, who I understand she's coordinating with. She's on the right track now. And Massey, of course, has been on the right track with regard to the War Powers Resolution all along.
Right.
And has asked Congress the question, which none of them can answer, Democrat or Republican or Independent. Who authorized all this?
That's the same question Lowell Weicker asked back in the 80s. repeatedly on the Senate floor, and he was always rebuffed and vilified, Senator Lowell Weicker, about the War Powers Act, which nobody seems to observe or care about.
Bunch of cowards in the Congress.
Right.
They don't understand what the Constitution says, or they ignore it.
Hey, Larry, speaking of our Congress and the Constitution, I tell you, I thought I was going to get on this bandwagon. Listen, all the citizens need to come together. I mean, this is bringing together, if you look at Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson, this is bringing together our country, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, progressives. And I was looking at ways, and then I realized in the Constitution, there's no way to have a recall, for whether the president or members of Congress. There's nothing in the Constitution that will allow us to do that. But we got to find some way to start all over again and get rid of these members of Congress that are bought and paid for by the Israeli lobby, primarily AIPAC.
Right.
And I'm just so happy that more of us are coming together, regardless of whether it's Republican or Democrat, progressive or conservative.
There is a recall method for the president, so to speak.
Right.
It's called
impeachment, the crimes and all that are what is that article where he incapacitated, where he or she, cannot govern. Those are only two.
Well, we've never removed a president. Never. Ever.
Right.
In our history.
No.
One vote short.
Impeachment.
Right.
But we so threatened one, Richard Nixon, with impeachment. The articles of impeachment were so powerful he resigned. I think Trump is very vulnerable to be the second.
Right. Well, Democrats are going to have to stand up, and along with some Republicans. I want to play one other. He's late. He's late in coming to the Jesus moment, like Margaret Taylor Greene, and that is Bernie Sanders. But he did make a very strident, a very cogent statement the other day on the Senate floor. Let me just play this.
These are the names of children published in the Washington Post today that have been killed by the Israeli military in Gaza. More than 200,000 have been killed or wounded since this war began. That, Mr. President, is 10% of the population of Gaza. If 10% of our population were killed or wounded in a war, it would mean that 34 million of us would have been killed or wounded. The toll on Gaza's children is unspeakable, and it is literally hard to imagine. Mr. President, despite these war crimes, the United States has provided more than $22 billion for Israel's military operations since this war began. $22 billion.
All right. Anybody want to comment on that?
Well, Randy, I think that Bernie's wrong, as I think a lot of other people are wrong, too. Not in his condemnation. He's absolutely right there, although he's a little late.
Right. That's what I was
wrong
getting at.
And who is ultimately responsible for this? Israel is the instrument. Yep. We are the responsible party.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. What about you, Chief?
No, a while back, until Larry opened my eyes, he will tell you we had a disagreement on that, and he's always been saying that. And, he somewhat convinced me that is indeed the case. Put it this way, for a fact, early on, early in history, Israel was a tool. And all you have to do is listen to Joe Biden. If we didn't have an Israel, we would have to create one. So there's no doubt that early on. Right. But I just think the Israel backers have gotten so powerful now. I still ease towards they're just the Israeli lobby and their billionaire donors and backers. I think they're still the ones that are pushing this. Though originally, there's no doubt in my mind that Israel was a tool for us in the Middle East to be able to control the Middle East. But let me just mention something else too when we talk about our Congress. It's so disturbing, to me. I've been calling them low-down, dirty bums here recently, and I say that because, if you listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene said earlier about their education and their free health care and so forth, think about this, Congress. When we talk about our conservatives, our Congress fight about, us having health care, like it's a crime for the American people to have free health care, like it's a crime to help out with education. I would want a smarter country, a more educated country. but it's a crime, within some of the conservative movements. Now, what would I say to that? When we talk about treason and so forth, that is being disloyal to Americans. It's right before our eyes that our Congress is more loyal to Israel than to its own people. And we need to wake up. Forget Russia, forget China. That is the biggest threat to our country.
But, as Larry pointed out, they're just the instrument. So Netanyahu is basically, he's the lightning rod, and it gives cover for all the presidents.
Stop. Randy, I have to say it again. I'm just getting so sick of what's going on in our world today. Originally, Israel was an instrument. Now, Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, has gotten all powerful. Do you think if Trump has the biggest ego in the world, do you think he will let Bibi Netanyahu make him look bad? Right now, he's kissing Bibi Netanyahu's behind.
Okay.
The problem, Randy, is that it isn't about Bibi Netanyahu or Trump. It's about the 100 or so billionaires behind
billionaire donors.
Okay.
With both political party affiliations or no political party affiliation.
True.
Who want to replace the United States government with a technocracy. They want a board. They want a board with a CEO, a COO, vice presidents, and shareholders. And oh, by the way, the shareholders aren't the American people. The shareholders are the defense contractors, ExxonMobil, and others like them. And they want to run the country that way. And they don't give a hang about the Holocaust. They don't give a hang about Jews or Israel. And many of them are Jewish and American citizens and Israeli citizens simultaneously. What they care about is the bottom line. And the bottom line they care about is their bottom line.
And Larry,
that's what's running this country now.
There you go. I was just going to say, that is happening now.
Right. Yep. It's really happening. And you guys, I admire both of you. You're great individuals. You're gutsy. And what I will say, there are very few people out there. There's Danny Davis. There's Douglas McGregor. There's, Ray McGovern with the CIA and Larry Johnson, a few others. But most of them that I see around, and I don't know why. You got guys like Hodges, Ben Hodges. You got Petraeus, and you got this clown. I got to play this. I don't want to get you guys as Judge Napolitano said. I don't want to raise your blood pressure, but this hack by the name of Jack Kane. All right, will I make you sick if I play this 1-minute clip of Jack Kane? You know what he's going to say.
Not to puke.
Yeah, likewise.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
All right. I'll turn the volume down, but I want the listeners to hear it anyway. This is Jack Kane, and now we're switching to Ukraine right now.
The Europeans were very clear. This is not a money issue for us. We're going to pay whatever it costs to take care of Ukraine, and we're going to purchase the weapons from the United States and do this. So they are really all in here. And where the president is, he's all in as well. Putin has got to be taking notice of that. He wanted to undermine our resolve in the Europeans, and he certainly wanted to break the will of the Ukrainian people to put more pressure on Zelensky so he would make major concessions. Big picture, Putin has been at war for 41 months. He still hasn't taken significant territory in Ukraine. His presidency is at stake, and he wants those concessions being made by Zelensky, and he wanted them to be supported by the President of the United States. It is not happening. So he has to begin to rethink where is he and how much stake is he going to continue to risk his presidency by this involvement.
Well, there you go. I hope you guys are still awake.
How this guy ever got his first star is beyond me. However, when I listen to Donahue make his comments about Kaliningrad, I realize that we don't have any standards anymore for flag officers.
How did he go up there? The guy, looks like he's 30 years old, this guy, Christopher, by the way.
Let's look at a couple of things, Randy. First of all, there's Patrick Babb, who was interviewed this morning. He's a German journalist. He's very smart. He usually looks for and finds, in some miraculous way, the truth. He has contacts on the ground in Ukraine. And one of the things he said was, we, the empire, have so propagandized European media that the truth never gets through to the average German, the average European, period. And I know that because in my administration we started this process of buying. Yes, Randy, we bought newspaper editors, journalists, politicians, all throughout the NATO countries to ensure that our hegemony was solid, because we bought the governments that are now in command in European countries that belong to NATO. But here's what he said, too. Having gone into Ukraine, having looked and felt and seen what's happening, here's the casualty count that he estimates right now. 1.4 million KIA overall. And he gives a take, he'll say that's roughly accurate. 1.4 million KIA, not WIA. Now, WIA, generally speaking on a modern battlefield, is anywhere from 4 to 11 times what your KIA is, depending on the proficiency of the battlefield medical evacuation procedure and battlefield surgery and immediate hospitals behind the battlefield. Ukraine's are not too good. Russia's are pretty good. So you got to take that into account. But here's the casualty count. 1.4 million KIA in the Ukraine conflict, of which 1 million are Ukrainian and possibly 200 to 300,000 are Russian. Now multiply that times any kind of figure you want to come up with for battlefield evacuation capabilities. So let's just say 4, and you have the WIA. Add all of that together, and most of those WIAs are missing a leg, missing an arm, missing a hand, whatever. They're not coming back to the battlefield. Ukraine has lost, NATO has lost so badly that all Putin's got to do now is just stand around and wait until Donald Trump fesses up. Now, what Donald Trump is going to do probably, because this is typical Donald Trump, and I'll tell you right now, I don't even think this meeting is going to take place. I may be wrong. I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. But I don't think the meeting is going to take place because there is no way Donald Trump is going to come out of a meeting with Vladimir Putin and be able to spin it to his own credit. No way in the world, because Putin is resolute. He has won, he knows it, and he is beginning to understand what a duplicitous, deceiving son of a bitch Donald Trump is.
Right.
So there's no way,
there's no way
he's coming out of this meeting positively, Donald Trump. So watch for it to be canceled.
Chief, you can add on to it, but I also want to add this question. That guy, Kane, and so many others work for those who should be instituted, the Institute for the Study of War. And are these guys on a heavy payroll? Are they doing it for money, or do they believe it?
What a perfect question. Randy, you must read my mind. I guess we've been around each other so much now. I wrote down a note as Larry was talking to answer that specific question, and then you asked that question. Wow.
Well, I'm a mind reader. I'm like Nostradamus. Yeah. All right.
Well, see, it goes back when you asked me about the mission of the Eisenhower Media Network. See, we are volunteers. We do this because we care about our country. We've been in the Pentagon, inside the Pentagon. We've been inside the FBI. We've been inside the CIA. We came out realizing how corrupt our foreign policy was. We decompressed, we detoxed, if you will. And we're doing this for our country. We're volunteers. Whereas you see the people like Jay King, and others that you mentioned before, they are paid by the military industrial complex or the Pentagon. They are beholding these think tanks. They're funded. They're making plenty of money. When you people like the Eisenhower Media Network and others that you've mentioned, we're doing this independently because we care so much about our country. And that's why we're being straight. The Eisenhower Media Network was created to give the alternative analysts of what's going on in the world, and to be quite the truth as we know it. Yeah. We want to give it to the American people so they can make their own critical decisions. We may be wrong, but we're giving you the facts that we know.
Right. You got some great people with you. It's a great roster. You got you two, you got Matthew Ho, you got Dennis Fage, who's been on this show. It really is. You guys are honest, and you don't do it for the money, but is Petraeus making a lot of money off of this? Do you know?
They all are, Randy.
Huh?
All are. They all are.
They all are, Randy.
This is not driven by ideology or, some kind of commitment to the old glory?
It's money.
Hey, let me tell you something.
Right, it's money. Do you remember Barry McCaffrey?
Yes,
Randy?
I do. He was the drug czar.
Barry was a
Four-star
very
general.
soldier. He was highly decorated. I used to sit down in the chairman's mess with him and talk with him. He's a pretty smart guy. I really thought Barry was a solid citizen until we went to war in Iraq in 2003 and the lead up to it. Barry McCaffrey became a shill for that war. And so I started looking into Barry McCaffrey. Barry McCaffrey was double dealing there. He was making money from CNN, lots of money, going on as a talking head advocating for the war, and he was heavily invested in those enterprises, defense contractors, that were going to make lots of money, like Halliburton, off of the war. I lost all of my respect for Barry McCaffrey. Yeah. That's what Keene is. That's what these other people are.
Yeah, and McCaffrey was also MSNBC. He was their so-called military expert analyst on MSNBC.
Yep. He made it off 2 or 3 different networks, as I recall.
Yeah, and let me mention, I'm going to give you another classic example. General Wesley Clark.
I was just going to mention him.
On record of saying that these 7 countries, I personally saw it. I was personally part of the classification team. He knew that exists. He should be the most outspoken person about the Iraq wars and these wars because he knows why they're happening. He has a chain of tune now. Why? He's on CNN all the time. I don't know if he's getting paid or not, but he's on CNN all the time. And yet he knew years ago about this plan to attack these 7 countries. There was no security threat to us, but it was something dreamed up by the neocons to go to war. Preempted wars, matter of fact. Wesley Clark is another example I'll use. And listen, as an enlisted guy, I spent the majority of my time in the Pentagon watching these guys grow up from military aides to general officers to executive officer, XOs, chiefs of staffs. And some of these guys are good people, unfortunately, but they're letting money drive them. They know better. One of the things about the Eisenhower Media Network, we've been trying to get general officers to speak out. Why does it have to be a colonel? Why does it have to be a command chief to speak out? These generals know better, especially what's going on listen, we were trained from day one, whether you are an officer or an enlisted, about the not killing of innocent women and children, to not to be bumming schools, to not to be bumming where people live, to not to be bumming hospital. Where are all these generals speaking out about that, which we, the United States of America, we are complicit in that? Where are they? Making money.
Well, I got just a few
Randy,
more.
We have no flag officers. No flag officers.
What's a flag officer?
Worth a pound of salt today.
Right.
General officer or naval officer? A general officer. They're general officers or Navy admirals.
Admirals and generals.
Right. Oh, gee. Just a couple more. We have just a few more minutes. I did want to cover this. First of all, you mentioned about a base being built in Italy, as if there's room for another base there. And also, you mentioned, you talked about the submarines, that these nuclear-armed submarines. And then you talked about the most dangerous part of all of this is giving nuclear weapons to the UK. That worries you the most, Colonel.
Well, it doesn't worry me because we've done that. They've been there. We've got nuclear weapons all over the place.
That won't be some kind of tripwire putting those there?
What worries me seriously is Trump's attitude about nuclear weapons. Right. He is the most cavalier person I think I've ever encountered in high responsibility about nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons are not something to joke about. Randy, in the entire span of the Cold War, we had better, more efficient, more effective communications with Russia, the USSR then, and with its military in particular, than we do today.
Right. Wow.
We had treaties. We don't have any today except New START, and it's out in February, and Putin has said he's not even going to think about renewing it with us. We don't have any controls whatsoever, and this man, Trump, acts as if it's just another weapon. It's just another cap gun. And oh, by the way, we happen to have the rough equivalent of Russia. Everybody should stand up and take notice. This is absurd. Absurd to play around in any way, rhetorical or otherwise, with the prospect of using nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Because when we do, Randy, it's over for all of us.
Well, you mentioned yesterday or the day before about this whole idea about using a limited tactical nuclear weapon, and Pal said way back to you, I believe, in '93, that don't even think about using a tactical nuclear weapon. It's not going to stop there.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a tactical nuclear weapon. We always said that in my circles anyway, in the Army. We always, and my joint circles too, we always said that. When you use a nuclear weapon, it's strategic the moment it goes off.
Right. Just read the book on the beach by Neville Shute. It all started with 1957. They made it into a movie with Gregory Peck and Fred Astaire and others. And
Dr. Strangelove
yes.
in '64,
Yeah.
or how I learned to love the bomb.
Yeah,
we don't have a public that even knows any of this, Randy.
Right,
They
I
don't
know
understand what it was like to go in your backyard and build a bomb shelter.
Right. Well, I was underneath my school desk in fourth grade.
I was just going to say that,
Yes.
Randy. Or thinking that was going to protect us. I remember in Texas, we did these drills of hiding under your desk, like that was going to protect us.
Yeah, it wouldn't protect you from a fire, let alone a nuclear blast. All right, gentlemen, I've got to go, and I'm going to play this special music here. Now, this is from a movie, 1933. It's Gold Diggers of 1933. Do you know the film? And this was a Depression-era film. And it's all about the bonus army. It's all about, and this song in particular is about the bonus army, and it's about the Depression and how those who were sent into battle in 1918, and came back, and they were totally screwed over. And so this song addresses that, and this is by Joan Blondell.
Oh, yeah.
And Joan Blondell and Etta Mouton. And this is Busby Berkeley was the choreographer of this great film. It's that and Grand Hotel are my two favorite films, I swear.
She's the blonde that
Yes.
preceded Jean Harlow.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go. We're going to come back with Richard Wolff. I want to thank the two of you, but at least listen to the song until it's over. Thank you, guys. And this is Joan Blondell and My Forgotten Man.
Remember my forgotten man? You put a rifle in his hand. You sent him far away. You shouted, hip hooray! But look at him today. Remember my forgotten man. You had him cultivate the land. He walked behind a plow. The sweat fell from his brow. But look at him right now. And once he used to love me. I was happy then. He used to take care of me. Won't you bring him back again? 'Cause ever since the world began, a woman's got to have a man. Forgetting him, you see, means you're forgetting me. Like my forgotten man.
Remember my forgotten man. You put a rifle in his hand. You sent him far away. You shouted hip hooray. But look at him today. Remember my forgotten man. You had him cultivate the land. forget and help me see me